Yeah. So Brad, you got a tattoo. Tell us what it is.
It is a quill pen on my right leg in black and white. My because I'm a writer, obviously. My brother is a chef, and he has a chef's knife from the same artist, actually, in the same place.
I love
and
it.
My wife has a tattoo of like a lady, the outline of a lady with an umbrella jumping in puddles in the same place. So
nice. I like it.
So is it like a superhero group thing, kind of? You know?
Apparently, it's turning into a super villain. Who knows?
Oh, okay.
You never know until it happens.
Hey nerds,
I've wanted
are we
for like
on?
a decade.
Is this working?
Yeah, looks like we're
Facebook?
connected to everything. Nope, no Facebook.
Yeah, that's why I was trying to hum the hymn of the
Facebook,
the Soviet Union, which I've been watching Hunt for Red October. So.
Oh dang, that's a good show, man. I haven't watched that in a long time, but I feel like when I was younger, I watched it a lot.
And a Facebook Russia joke, but they're not here. There's nobody from Facebook here no nerds from Facebook.
Yeah, we left them all in the dirt because of stupid software. So whatever.
Okay, so we're just gonna skip that. Okay, hey, sorry, we apologize. We have been gone for a while. Everybody's been busy or sick and tired. So there's a lot of ground to cover. We're going to try to get to as many topics as we can. 3 of them. GTX versus RTX. I want to know this because this always comes up. Going to ask Brad. He's here. He's fresh off a new review. Mo Ryzen rumors and USB 4. What I understand so far, I think, but I can tell you I don't really fully understand it. So
stay tuned. Man, we got the usual crowd, Vignesh, and we got Karesh from Iraq. Hello from Iraq. That's awesome. Yeah, and I was talking with somebody on our Discord, Rooker. He was saying he only where he lives. I don't know. He didn't say where he lives, but he has satellite. Dang, and where is it? He says he gets 1 gig per day, and it took him 2 months to download Witcher 3. So he can't tune in live because he's at home.
Okay. I thought it was like somebody with like a sat phone somewhere. One of those like those little folding sat phone things with the little umbrella.
Maybe I
trying
don't
to
know.
download a game in the field or something for his Xbox.
It sounds like usually he's at work, but he got hurt, and he was wondering if we had a live audio thing. And I was thinking like I've been talking about. Maybe setting up a Mixler for live audio stuff, but we'll see if there's interest. And then he told me his data, and I was like, wow, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
That's a bummer.
Yeah. Anyway, so good vibes to Rooker, who's obviously not here right now, and he's not going to hear this on the other. The audio version either. So
this is like that movie with Matthew McConaughey. All those, it's like one of those Nolan movies where there's always some time thing.
Layers upon layers.
Layers upon layers. Like he's downloading this podcast now, but it's from 3 months ago or something. But then he sends a question and it gets answered.
Yep. Time travels differently when you're on a satellite connection.
Yeah.
All right. Let's
do it.
Let's do it.
Sorry, I can't download this. What is up with this?
Are you on a satellite connection?
Yeah, practically.
Sometimes at this office it feels
internet.
that way.
Yeah. I'm trying to download this graphic
Also, we have somebody, Tech13, asking where our Alienware 51M review is.
Why
haven't you got to it?
That's a really good question. Are we talking about the Area 51?
Area 51M.
I want to see that. I want to see the Area 51M.
Yeah, we have not gotten one in yet.
Well, we'll have to hit them up for that. Okay, well, hell, we'll just go with this. I can't get this damn graphic to download.
Do it.
Ready? In this episode of Full Nerd... Oh, wait. 1660, right?
Yes.
In this episode of Full Nerd, 1660 Ti versus 2060. And Mo Ryzen 3000 rumors. And what I don't know about USB 4.
It's going to kill you.
I thought I understood it, and then no.
It's our utopian future.
No, I don't get it. Welcome to the Full Nerd episode.
No, you gotta wait for the hit. You totally missed the hit.
I was trying to look at the screen and then catch your hand out of the eye.
You hear the
Welcome
audio
to
and
the
then
Full
it hits.
Nerd. Is that it? Oh, is there a hit? I thought it was. I go with the signal.
It's da-na-na-na-na-na.
Yeah, we have been missing. We apologize again.
been
We
a
have been
long
off doing other things for a few weeks, and we missed a few episodes. We are really rusty. Welcome to the end again. Welcome to Full Nerd episode 86. I'm your host Gordon Ung with Brad. I can't remember his name. Co-host Brad Charkis.
I'm not rusty.
This is gonna be rough.
This is gonna be rough.
It is Friday.
Elaine Yee
And Friday too.
Hi, everyone.
and Adam Patrick Murray. No, I was gonna mention. Like, should I mention this deal thing, this deal story Elaine was telling, but it's like, no, it's too personal. We won't talk
It's
about
too
it.
personal.
We won't talk. See, that's what I was gonna say. That's why I didn't talk about
Deals
it.
are a very personal thing.
$80 for in-store purchase at Micro Center for a Ryzen 5 1600. That's not personal. That's amazing.
No, not that one. It's the other deal story about Micro Center you were talking about. I can't.
All right.
You bring it
I
up.
don't
I won't
even
bring
know
it up.
this. I don't
Adam
know this.
Patrick Murray controlling the vertical. and
I have
horizontal.
a burning question, hot from the from Adam Patrick Murray. Elena, how do you pronounce this word? So people can see it.
All right, so the story behind this is that I was looking at a textbook and they spelled it out as like SEW.
For the audio listeners, I'm holding up a piece of paper that
Yeah.
says SO-DIMM.
SODIM, right? So
Yeah.
everyone pronounces it SODIM, but they spelled it, the pronunciation in this book, as SEW DIMM. And I was like, well, yeah, right. So if you actually think about the word sew as in sewing, like that's correct. But I looked at it and I was like, who's gonna
Sue?
Yeah, like that's what I would think, right? Like I was
Pseudim?
like, who's gonna pronounce it like the way that they want you to do it? Like this is weird. Why wouldn't you just spell it as SOH or something like that to like get the phonetic
Yeah.
kind of
I
pronunciation?
don't know if SOH would be SEW is so.
Yes, but if you saw that and someone said this is pronounced like I don't know, like my first thought was not like, oh, of course, like sewing. I'm like, sewage?
Yeah, that is weird.
It's not Sue though. I mean, if it's SEW, you would never say
But
Sue.
if you're a native English speaker, you'd eventually puzzle it out, right? But can you imagine if you're not? You'd be like, what the heck is this? Like you would look at the word sewing and you would not think it's pronounced sewing. You'd be like, sewing?
But why would they put that in there? How to pronounce it?
It was a basic textbook. Like, here's what computer parts do.
I mean, but did they say SODIM or SODIM and then brackets pronounce so? Okay, got it.
That's why it would seem so strange because it's like you look at the acronym, it's like SO, like that's a word already, and then they
That makes sense.
changed it to like SEW for the pronunciation. I was like, so do you mean sewage, like sewdim, like that's
Like a
weird.
pseudonym?
Yeah.
Why
and,
would
then, and then you posted it on Twitter.
I did,
Yeah.
and I didn't like clearly explain what I was thinking. And everyone's like, Elena, it's just
Yeah.
so like sewing, and I'm like, no, this is like Brad understood me. Thanks, Brad.
I guess what I don't understand is why they bothered to tell you how to pronounce it, because nobody pronounces anything in a uniform manner, right?
True.
Data,
Well, especially in
data,
the English
SATA,
language.
SATA.
Hey, and I was just in the UK, and they got privacy, aluminium.
Yeah, we
you
don't
know.
care about that.
Yeah.
But what I just don't. Why? I mean, I'm just trying to think of all the things
Pseudim.
that everybody pronounce, like BIOS.
Pseudim.
I don't know.
Bios.
I could see somebody not knowing, and not hearing somebody say it on a podcast.
So here's
Yeah.
the one I just don't know how to pronounce as an acronym still. It's the UEFI, like UFI.
Yeah, there is no. Yeah, that's what I think we should try to start. I tried to start that. Oofy is good. I think Oofy makes. But then people are like, what? What? But then I mean, BIOS doesn't like really.
I just still call it the BIOS.
Well, I do
not,
too. And
but-
somebody got on me. Somebody got really angry. There's no more BIOSes. That's a extensible firmware. And it's like, dude, just people just call it. It's not a hard drive, but you
It's
talk
not
to people,
really
you gotta say
Kleenex.
it's a
I know,
drive.
it's tissue paper.
You got
I
really
hate
angry.
That. I hate
so it's
that.
like-
Yeah.
It's
Especially
just
the tissue
inefficient.
paper thing. Anyway,
Yeah.
let's why don't we move into talking
good.
about
Actual topic.
I like
Brad's-
that. Adam is the one who derails it. Then he's like, yeah,
somebody's got to
stay
bring
on
it back.
topic.
Somebody's got to bring it back.
In order to be the hero, you got to set up the bad situation.
I am no hero. Brad is the hero.
Become the villain.
Yeah. Brad is the hero because so far, since we've been off the air for 3 weeks, you've reviewed not one but two 1060 Ti cards, Brad.
No,
1660
Ti. That rolls.
What
right
did I
off the
say?
tongue.
Jeez.
You said 1060.
Oh God.
Which I don't blame you for
Yeah.
because the naming and the different lines is starting to get a little confusing.
It's real confusing.
So what are they going to do next time? Like the 3000 RTX and then the 2600? Like what, like they're just getting into
I
a
hope
weird
not.
spot, right?
There's going to be RTX living with GTX living with.
Yeah.
I think by then it'll
all be RTX.
We'll leave behind the non-ray
This is a half
trace capable
step.
parts. I would think.
Maybe not on the low end.
Who knows?
We'll see.
We'll see.
But
We
yeah,
don't know, right?
In today's here and now, GTX is back, and the cards are actually pretty awesome. I mean, it's kind of old news at this point because we've been offline for a couple of weeks, but we just today actually published our second review of EVGA's 1660 Ti XC Ultra, which is a $310 version of the card. 1660 Ti, people who don't know, costs $280 MSRP. It's generally just a little bit faster than the GTX 1070 was, and that card debuted at $380. So as opposed to the RTX cards coming out and pretty much having the same performance as the previous generation pricing, with this first GTX card that's come back, it actually delivers, a big punch over its predecessor for $20 more than I think the 1060 debuted at launch, because I think the 1060 debuted at $260, right? I think so.
I think
Yeah,
so.
right
These are
around there.
$280. So, yeah, they're great. I reviewed two of them: the EVGA model, the XC Ultra, and also the Asus ROG Strix, which is a $330 model. So that's a $50 price premium over baseline. But the Strix is like the coolest, quietest card I've ever seen. It's loaded with extras. It's like the Rolls Royce of graphics cards. It's real nice. EVGA's card, it doesn't have all those extras. It actually keeps it pretty simple. It doesn't even have RGB or backplate or anything like that. But it has a great cooler, great cooling performance, great thermals, great noise. Exact same performance as the ROG Strix. $20 cheaper. They're both great cards. They both won Editor's Choice from us. And they beat the pants off the Radeon RX 590. Like, that card came out a few months ago, and I was like, wow, this is a great card.
Yeah.
And the 1660 Ti cards just smack it silly. There's no reason to consider
But
Radeon.
Brad, they cut the price of the Vegas.
Yeah,
56.
I heard some people say that.
Yeah, they cut the price.
I
of
didn't
two
mention that in my
parts.
reviews because it did not happen.
Yeah,
The funny thing about that, there's a big controversy. People don't know there's a big controversy because the night before the 1660 Ti's came out, AMD contacted a bunch of reviewers and said, "Hey, just so you know, Vega 56 is $280 or $290 now." It turns out it was like one model that was on sale for that price for like 5 minutes or something like that. But the ironic part to me is that a few weeks before that, when the Radeon 7 came out, AMD actually reached out to me the night before and said, "Just so you know, NVIDIA's doing weird pricing stuff. That's not what these are normally priced at." So
Wow.
that happens also. Both of them guys do it all the time.
did
That's
the
what
did the
companies
Nvidia pricing stick though? I mean, did it actually stick to? Okay, good. They just do it to mess with each other.
I
So
don't think
Yeah.
so, because I saw the Vega 56 for $260 after mail-in rebate yesterday
Oh,
or 2
that's
days
not
ago.
bad.
No, yesterday.
That's
but
good.
that's a deal. That's not, the normal price. Because I was looking at the street prices for the other models, and
They're still
like,
$400.
a little lower than that, but they're like in the 300s, I think, right now.
56 or 56 is 300s.
Yeah.
64 must be 400ish.
Probably. Still, I didn't look at 64 yesterday.
So Brad, sorry, I haven't kept up with it. Is this the best you can get for 1080p, 1440? What kind of?
I consider this. It's basically a GTX 1070, but much more power efficient. It doesn't take any more power than the old GTX 1060 the card is replacing, but it gives you 1070 power.
Huh.
So it'll give you pretty solid 1440p performance. It'll give you great 1080p performance. Like if you have a high refresh rate 1080p monitor, this is one of the cards you want to go get. Brain fart. It's Friday. So yeah, it's a great card. It costs that much. I've only
1440,
reviewed
60.
more expensive variants of them. So I've reviewed one that has a $30 markup and one that has a $50 markup because they're all custom and overclocked. And these are the best EVGA version of it and the best ASUS version of it, and they're knockout cards.
Does it seem like there's a lot of overclocking headroom for the board makers over stock cards? I mean, was there like a stock speed that was published? And
yeah, I think the stock speed was 1770, right around there, boost clock. And these ones come in at 1860, both the EVGA and the ASUS ones. And that's in theory. Out of the box, in practice, because the way NVIDIA's boost clock works, both of these cards actually fluctuate between 1935 and 1950 MHz. Again, Friday brain fart. And they have more overclocking room using like the NVIDIA scanner tool or traditional overclocking methods beyond that even.
Is there a reason why they're not doing Founders Edition versions that you know of?
They didn't last generation for the 3 gigabyte 1060 or the GTX 1050. So I think that as they move lower, they try to just leave that to the board partners. And I wouldn't be surprised if with them, at the big RTX push, they just wanted to stick to those cards for this. But they didn't say specifically why.
And it almost seems like to me that when they realize, they want to leave money on the table for the board vendors, they don't compete with them, because clearly Founders Edition cards do compete with the aftermarket partners. So they're like, hey, we're going to stay out of here. You guys take all the profit from it. Maybe. Yeah.
Especially the 2060. The 2060 isn't overclocked. It doesn't have a price premium like the higher end cards do. And that card makes it real rough for third-party board partners like ASUS and EVGA and PNY and stuff to deliver compelling cards at the same price.
So this is the question I want to know, Brad. And this is the one question I really want to know, because Elaine and I were like, we hadn't seen each other in a while. We're like, hey, 1660 Ti versus 2060. And we're like, well, of course, we couldn't remember.
Yeah, we have
pricing.
some people in the chat asking about that too.
That's what I want to know, because 2060 and 1660 Ti, that is just, to me, it's like, you got to make your decision there, right? You're going to take your fork in the road for now anyway, it seems.
Or a 1070 maybe that you can find for cheap, huh?
1070 is...
Well, the 2060 is faster. It has more CUDA cores. It has everything that makes the 1660 Ti fast, makes the 2060 fast, and the 2060 has more of them. I forget the exact details off the top of my head, but I think it's like 10 to 15% faster than the 1660 Ti. Which, if you're looking for 1080p gaming performance, don't care about ray tracing RTX technologies, then I would say just stick with the 1660 Ti. That card does more than enough at 1080p resolution that I would recommend getting the 1660 Ti. If you plan on playing at 1440, that extra 10 to 15% performance for the 2060 makes it much more compelling. I think, as you go up in resolution, it's better to buy a little bit more performance, because higher the resolution, the faster your card gets obsolete. That makes sense?
Yeah.
In RTX, that's still, I consider it a personal value decision.
Right.
Like, I don't consider RTX a must-buy feature at this point. It's still, low adoption enough that if the two cards were the same price, I mean, obviously get the one that has RTX in it, but we're talking about a $70 difference from MSRP to MSRP.
Yeah,
so.
But what about street to street? Because isn't a 2060 about 350-ish now?
Yeah, that's where they start. 350. That's what you pay for a Founders Edition, which is actually a very good, like, if I was going to buy a non-crazy overclocked RTX 2060, I would definitely get the Founders Edition. And that's 350, which makes it tricky for, like, these cards that I reviewed, because, like, the EVGA XE Ultra is 310. So that's only $40 difference.
Yeah.
But the difference is the EVGA card and the ASUS ROG Strix at 330 are like the ultimate versions of the 1660 Ti. They have crazy coolers. They have dual BIOSes. They have, the ASUS card has fan headers on it that you won't get at $350 on a 2060. So it depends on whether or not you want all those extra features, whether you want RTX. It's kind of complicated because they are so close. $70 ain't that much, really.
And I do gotta say, I'll admit it. Between my trips, I've been playing some Metro, and just like in the back of my mind, just being like, oh man, this could look so much better if I had an RTX card. It really, that little ear in my, that little worm in my ear is just like, dang it.
If you can't see it, it's.
But I've seen it. And I've watched the Digital Foundry side by side, and I'm just like, wow, this,
It makes a massive difference in Metro, which is one of the best games we've reviewed this year.
Yeah.
But I would say that's the only game where it makes that kind of difference.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Damn good game.
It's funny to me, like when I play, because I don't have a variable refresh at home. I have it at work, but it's just when you play high refresh and either FreeSync or G-Sync, it's so nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go home and you're like, but it's just better not to. It's better not to look.
Or you like me, and work from home. And then I have the variable refresh at home too.
I know.
There you go.
But I mean, I understand you're saying $70 MSRP, but we're really looking at base model $350 versus blinged out model for $330.
I mean, that's the super, like the Strix is like overkill, basically. It's borderline overkill. I think it's worth it because the cooler is so effective that you can either have it run at I think it maxed out at 59 degrees under a long ass load.
Wow. And that does matter for a lot of people, for sure.
It does.
I don't know
why. Very, very quiet. And that was very quiet. But what's cool about what Asus has been doing with its dual BIOSes is that it goes, okay, this is a little bit overcooled for this particular GPU. So switch to the quiet BIOS. And you're still getting temperatures around 65, 66 degrees, but it's silent. So you won't get that in the $350 RTX 2060. You do get that out of the ROG Strix.
So you're saying it's not really that fair to compare them. It's sort of it'd be a baseline.
To compare them, but they're different. they're different. It's the Rolls-Royce version of the cheaper card versus you're trying to compare the Volkswagen against the Rolls-Royce.
Actually, what actually is an even better comparison is, and I don't know people understand their Hondas.
Yeah.
So you get that.
I thought he was going to bring up old TV shows.
Honda Civic is the baseline car, right? This is it's a cheaper car. Yeah. It's smaller.
I have one.
Yeah, but you know what? You can get a really blinged out Honda Civic, right? You get the EX models, got the sunroof. Back then, of course, power went. All this, all the special stuff. It's still a Honda Civic, but it's damn, look at all this. It's really nice. And then you have your baseline Accord, which is bigger, roomier, it's quieter, but it's
a car. You got
the there's it really there's roll down window and manual crank windows, and there's it's just really stripped out.
That's
probably
analogy.
a fair analogy.
That's a good analogy, yeah. So as Brad was saying earlier, it's just what you value, right? So I had an acquaintance who went for the Camry, which is the equivalent of the Accord, and he got the one without the automatic door locks, and I was like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? But that's what he chose. He didn't want the Corolla. He wanted the Camry.
No, I guess it's not necessarily fair to compare because it's definitely features that are not in that entry level.
Yeah, and if you're looking to get an RTX 2060 with that feature set, it's going to cost you the $30 to $50 over, just like these ones do.
Yeah. So then you're, okay. It really.
If you're interested in maximizing pure performance, again, it'll depend on your resolution and your monitor. But I think a baseline version of either of these cards with a decent dual axial cooler. I mean, it's so easy to overclock this generation of Turing GPUs that as long as you get a decent, okay cooler, none of them are awful on the GTX side. They're not like the Vega 64 was. They're not going to howl and scream at you. Even the baseline ones are pretty okay. So if you aren't afraid of overclocking, that's something you might strongly want to consider with these cards.
Speaking of comparison stuff, we have a couple people who came in late, like Flash Photo, asking, so how does the RX 580 and the 590 line up with all this stuff? Does it still recommend? Who would you recommend it to, if anybody?
The 590, avoid at all costs at this point. It's not worth what you're paying for it, unless you're taking them up for those 3 free games offers. There, you can get it bundled with The Division 2, Devil May Cry 5, and Resident Evil 2. If you're looking for that anyway, maybe pick that up instead of I still would get a 1660 Ti, unless you're looking to pick up all 3 of those games, and we're going to spend that $180 to begin with. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. On the flip side, if you just 90% of the people out there have a 1080p 60 monitor, we talked about this last time. If you have a monitor like that, just your standard 1080p 60 monitor, I still think the Radeon RX 580 is by far the best value card available now on the discount prices that we're seeing them at, and that I've seen available in a long time, was from even well before the cryptocurrency disaster. Like, you can pick up an 8 gigabyte version of that card with 2 of those 3 free games of your choice. We've seen them for like $180, 200. If you can't find one for $200, you're not looking, and that is a hell of. But that being said, if you have a higher refresh rate monitor, just want more future proofing, I think the 1660 Ti is definitely the card to beat. And the Radeon RX 590 at this point is like, why is this here?
The pricing just kind of makes it silly.
Yeah, I mean, it's still. I don't think it had an official price drop yet, or at least I wasn't told of one. It theoretically cost $280, just like the 1660 Ti. On the street, the day that this card launched, I saw them on sale for $260, so they shaved $20 off of it. That doesn't make up for the difference in performance.
Right, just buy
60
the
Ti just makes it
580. Just get the 580. It seems like. So they really don't compete.
580 or 1660, yeah.
All right. Well, sweet.
It's good. It's great.
Yeah.
Like, just to close it up, with the majority of the RTX cards, like, a couple of them are like, yeah, that's real cool, but, you know, I don't feel like I'm really getting my money's worth. Like, it doesn't feel like a big jump from last generation. This is the first GTX card of this generation with the whole new number system that still doesn't make any sense to me. But this first GTX card to come back, this is the first card of this generation where I'm like, wow, that's a big jump over what you could have got before. That's a big jump over 1060. So,
Nice.
But still, it's. I mean, obviously if you have a 1060 or, well, would you even do it from a 1050 Ti, something like that? You know,
1050 Ti definitely.
Yeah,
That would be a pretty big jump.
Yeah.
1060, no. 1060, I would just sit on it.
Yeah, no, I mean that'd be crazy, right? So it's really for 2-3 gen buyers making their
and the build up to this, in the initial press briefings and whatnot, NVIDIA said something like 70% of NVIDIA card owners have a 960 equivalent or less. And if you come from that to this, it's night and day. It'll be just such a major increase for you.
Yeah, I mean that's 1070 for 960. That is a world of difference in performance. So,
well, Tech with Sean would like to remind us that a used 1080 Ti is still the best card of 2019.
What are they going for? I guess I don't know. You probably don't have too many miles on them too, because people bought them for the mining thing right before they blew up. So
yeah.
I don't know. I'd be real nervous about buying a used 500 video card.
Yeah, I would be too. So,
all right, should we move on to some rumors?
Whoa.
Sure.
Rumors.
Yeah, Mo Ryzen 3000 rumors. Although I am not totally up on all these. I think Elena has been. Anybody followed these?
I've been kind of looking at them, but at this point, with it being 3 weeks since we last talked, and more for me, I don't actually know what's new and what's not. But we haven't talked about anything really related to Ryzen 3.
What I feels like to me is Ryzen 3000 rumors are just the same rumor from Adored TV's rumor from like last year that like people keep recycling. He had that same. I think the same. It's sort of like reconfirming the same rumor.
Yeah. So the new part, supposedly, I think this was like last week, where Tom's Hardware was talking about how I think it's a Singaporean retailer published a product catalog that kind of aligned with the Adored TV leaks. And they're not sure. So Tom's Hardware, the writer, wasn't sure if this is actually a confirmation, like another data point, or if they just use that leak to like set up their product catalog.
Yeah, which is very normal, right? This happened many times in the past. So it seems to confirm that the previous leak is correct, but it's just.
But who knows, right? So that's the.
Yeah, that's kind of like people who take the case manufacturer rumors for phones to be like, oh, the new iPhone's going to have this because the case makers have it. Not necessarily. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're just working out best guesses.
Yeah. I do think it's interesting because we didn't discuss it as far as I know yet. Just looking at the supposed, stack of CPUs here. Like, for example, I'm really surprised that the 2200G replacement, aka our favorite GPU of 2018.
Yeah.
Hours is a strong word.
Yeah, ours
Brad's
is not. Don't make me Spike Lee this.
But the replacement, supposedly, the 3300G is going to be $30 more starting price. But I mean, it has more cores, more threads. But even still, I actually really like that the 2200G was at that very solid entry level
Double
place.
digits.
Yeah, just because the other ones don't have integrated graphics. So I mean, if you really just wanted to start with a very basic build, you could.
And the 3300G is I'm just looking at another leak over at Forbes. It's
the same stuff. I was looking at that earlier too.
612, 6 cores, 12 threads, 3 gigahertz, 3.8
on the 3300G.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So
Yeah.
plus whatever graphics cores they chuck in there.
Yeah, but there is a difference in pricing between the two leaks. So the Adored TV price leak, according to Tom's, was listed at 130 or 129. The Singaporean list price converted to US dollars is 145. So lots of rumors and speculation at this point. I don't think the pricing information maybe is worth trusting.
Yeah, I mean, in July, I mean, all things point to mid-year. They officially it's mid-year, which could be everywhere from June to whatever August, right? So,
Well, mid-year would be June.
yeah, June. But I mean, sometimes it kind of rolls into like July, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think people are saying it's going to come out in July, but I wouldn't put too much in it. Yeah, actually, yeah, the original was 130 and now 145.
And the thing is, pricing and naming details, and you could see this from the previous Adored TV rumor where he called all of NVIDIA's RTX series cards. The pricing, the exact naming and the price changes sometimes weeks, days before products launch.
Yeah.
So always take this stuff with a big grain of salt.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's all marketing. It's all positioning.
For sure.
And that changes real quick.
Thing is, though, given the core and thread count and the fact that the GPU is beefier as well, I would be really surprised if it came out at $100. I mean, it'd be huge.
Yeah.
It'd be huge if it did. But I actually don't think realistically they could afford to sell it for that low.
Yeah, that seems crazy, doesn't it? I mean, that's a lot for that, and it's a lot of hard. But AMD's always have that value proposition.
I just personally,
That's
I think
a real good value.
It's a hell of a good
it's
value.
a good value, but I think I would have still liked seeing something that was like a 4.8. 4 cores, 8 threads. A little bit better still than the 2200G, but affordable, a little more affordable in that range, because even $30 in that range can make a difference to somebody.
Yeah.
One of the rumors for this upcoming generation is that it does away with quad core. Is that correct for Ryzen? One of the rumors that's been floating around the internet, I think.
It looks like it. Like everything starts at 612.
Yeah, multiple.
And if that's the case, I imagine it would be pretty hard for them to still do a 612 2200G replacement with Radeon graphics.
Yeah.
$100, man.
I can hope. I like low prices. Everyone knows that now.
I thought Gordon was crazy when he first said the first gen Ryzen was going to be $500. So AMD has surprised the heck out of me before. So
well, I know that's why people would not be surprised. Like the rumor from last year still is that 16 core part, right? That everybody saw that extra empty spot in the on the chip at CES. $500 for 16 cores in a consumer level part is just that's insane. That is just insane. That's MSRP 1KU pricing. So who knows? I mean, it could come down to $400. That's just crazy. Even if there are some limitations to a design of stacking in 16 cores into dual channel memory, but who cares?
yeah.
I mean, but realistically, you don't really need it. People don't. I think we just get greedy. You don't need it. It's like, oh, I need 64 gigs of RAM. No, you don't. But you just spend all this money for it because you got greedy. You don't need it.
I mean, it's a boon to the people who actually will use it, right? So there's a very small segment of the population that is benefiting greatly from these advances. And then the rest of us are just along for the ride because it's fun.
Yeah, although I do wonder sometimes, if you're, I just want to mention this because if you're into the whole benchmarking thing, you use the fixed benchmarks and then you actually play games in the gaming side of thing. I was just looking at 6 core, a Core i7 6 core mobile with 1060 And damn, in Far Cry 5, that's the latest one, right? Not before that latest DLC.
Yeah, New Dawn just came out.
Yeah,
Far
so
Cry 5 is the big one.
Yeah,
the last number.
The big one. I was like, I was very shocked that there were some scenes where you were just, it was hitting 6 threads. It was really wailing on that i7 part. It was like, but you don't see it in the actual benchmarks that often. So there's just parts of games where it's like, because you don't know what the hell's going on there. Is it Windows doing something? Is it the game doing something? But
yeah,
I'm not surprised to hear that because Far Cry 5, Ubisoft worked closely with AMD. They actually have the splash logos in the front of the game. So not surprised to hear it takes advantage of Ryzen's strengths.
Elena, would you rather have seen them go for higher clocks and keep the cores the same between the 2200G and the 3300G?
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, I think that would benefit the type of person who would want to make the most of a part like the 2200G. So I was actually in Oregon a couple weeks ago.
Oregon.
Yeah. And a friend of mine, I was staying with a friend of mine, and he said that he actually read my article from Black Friday, and he actually built a system based on that. And he's playing like, I don't know, Fortnite or something on the 2200G, and he's super happy with that.
Oh, okay, that's
Dude,
good.
so many people play
I was thinking
Fortnite.
it was like you get there with all your bags and everything. Hey, I'm staying over. I built that system. You can't stay here today. Why don't you go Airbnb that.
He's really happy with it. He's really happy with it.
I hope AMD sold a buttload of those because they really are an amazing little part. And
Yes, it's the best GPU of the year,
Yeah,
Brad.
we gave it an award.
I think they really missed the boat by, I'm just trying to ignore that and put that behind me. By not like specifically,
You'll never be
like
able to.
you could go to Walmart and be like, here's your Fortnite PC powered by AMD, and it's like $300 or $400. Like I never saw that, and I was really hoping I was going to for that part.
Yeah. Well, actually, I've heard a lot of what drove console sales is that the PS4 had a Fortnite bundle. Like, even though the game's free, it was just like, you get some V-Bucks or whatever, and the Fortnite PS4 bundle, like, totally outsold a lot of the other things, over the holidays. Somebody comes in, they're like, oh, yeah, my kid wants that. And it comes
Just
with
marketing.
it. Yeah, right?
It's just marketing.
So, yeah,
Nvidia
too
was
bad they
doing
didn't do that.
too. Nvidia was
But-
bundling V-Bucks with 2060, I think it was.
Nice.
Is that Fortnite train still going?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dude.
Okay. Oh my God.
I mean, Apex Legends is coming up and is definitely big, but Fortnite is still huge.
Okay, because the intelligence I'm getting from the 8th grade is like, no, that Fortnite thing, that's over.
But I feel like your intel is a very specialized group of children.
Since I don't allow a
Yeah,
console
that you
in our
won't- yeah, I
house.
was-
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
like,
Consoles
there,
allowed in our house.
Yeah.
That might be it. It might skew that demo a little bit.
So I don't know if I fully answered your question, but I wouldn't. How do I put this?
Well,
I think that kind of that direction would still be beneficial, as opposed to just beefing up the entire thing and then raising the price.
no, I agree with you because we're going to get cynical here because we're definitely into a core thread count war between AMD and Intel.
Yep.
And it doesn't for most people, you don't need all those threads. I mean, I like the idea of 16 cores. I'd want to build one. But I can't recommend that everybody do it.
Right.
It's just, and more clocks generally benefit the most things that people do with a reasonable amount of threads, right? So 8 to 12,
Yeah. So 8 with a higher clock, not bad.
Yeah. So, that's what I think. But that's where I think Ryzen 3000 is going to be really good for AMD because they get to 7 nanometer and their whole issue of Intel always having higher clocks, 300 to 400 no matter what, every single part, that hopefully kind of closes up for AMD. So they're going to close up that clock speed gap and, they will be in a lot better ground,
And I still don't think Intel's desktop 10 nanometer parts are going to launch this year in mass. So they might have a good lead for a good long bit.
Yeah, I don't think so either, right? That's just... Do we have a bet on that? I forget.
I can't remember.
I put it on paper. I put it on paper.
I have the list somewhere. I can look it up later.
You just delete it. We're going to hack
Just
it.
delete it. Yeah.
So all that thread count though talks about another bit of semi-Ryzen related news that was actually confirmed this week. That Threadripper 3, I believe, 3rd gen Threadripper, is gonna launch this year. So that's not really a surprise, but it's the first time it was officially confirmed. So
I wonder where they go from there, though.
128.
It's just like, do they really do a 64 core consumer? I mean, there's nothing consumer about that or that, that W3175X part. But
it's literally called Threadripper, so they kind of back themselves into a corner. It's not Core Ripper.
Well, they already have
Threadripper.
32. That's why I don't know how you.
I have to. Kind of piggybacking on that. I have to admit, of all the things I'm looking forward to this year, Threadripper almost is like a yawn for me, just because at this point I'm like, it's like at this point, how are you going to wow me any
64.
further? But at this point, it's just like, okay, this is ridiculous. It's gone beyond things that I can comprehend. It's like quantum physics for me. It's like, cool, it exists, but it has nothing to do with my daily life.
It'll be $500, Elena. Oh my God. Oh. No, it could be reasonably. It could be 64 cores for, $2,500. They can't make it lower than 2990 WX. It'll be more. It could be $3,000.
We'll just have to look at your chart. Remember how we noticed, kind of always lines up with.
That's true.
Per core.
Yeah, we just look at your money chart.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah,
we can
just calculate.
You're right. We just run it out. It could be.
We will know the price of Threadripper 3 before it comes out.
Good Lord, what is that?
We
should
that
figure that out right now.
We'll stall for you in the meanwhile.
Yeah.
Let me talk about something else.
But really, okay, so Brad, Adam, for the two of you, what would they have to do with Threadripper for you to have that same initial reaction that we all had with the first gen, and even to a degree with the second gen? I mean, at this point, I feel like I'm wowed out.
Unless they've dropped prices massively across the board, they're like, hey, you know what? We're gonna slot everything down. I think it's more of a money thing because that would just be nuts. More cores, whatever.
For me, I'm intrigued to see what the move to the 7-nanometer process can do for clock speeds, because they've got the core stuff handled. They've got the PCIe Express lanes, out the wazoo. That thing's so that's just a ridiculously overkill part, unless it's exactly what you need. But if 7 nanometers let them greatly increase clock speeds, because once you start getting up to those high core count chips on the Intel side, they're 3 gigahertz, kind of a deal. If they can manage to push it at 7 nanometer, that could be interesting. But if they drop a 64 core chip, I'd be like, that's ridiculous, but I still love it that they're just keeping the pedal to the metal.
I'm not saying it's not cool. I just think my emotional response to it at this point, I would just think, oh, that seems like everything's right in the universe. This is following an established pattern.
Yeah. But also, Gordon at the time was having a real hard time getting anything to really take advantage of all those cores. You put 64 in there and you're like, what do you, I'm sure, but really who's taking advantage of that?
It was really tough, right? So by my calculations, the 2990 WX, which is 32 core, 64 threads, $28 per thread. And that works out for a 64 core 128 thread version to be $35.84.
Okay. Yeah.
$3,600.
You hear it first. You heard it first.
If you think about it,
wait, that's cheaper than the 28 core Xeon part?
No,
right?
the 28 core Xeon is
3,000.
3K.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
you're getting 60. You'd be getting supposedly 64 instead of 28.
Yeah.
Okay.
128 threads.
And then if it did have higher, if it had higher clocks on top of that, then that would be pretty exciting.
Yeah, it would be. And I'm for $3,500. It's that's a really good deal.
That's a really good deal. This is coming from the guy who's God. I just bought a 400 gigabyte micro SD card. I don't need it, but it seemed like it was a good price.
I returned that card, damn it.
Because it wasn't a good price anymore after you thought about it.
Well, I realized I fell into the Amazon trap where they hold it at a price and then they drop it and it seems like, what a great deal. I better get aboard because I'm going to miss out. oh no, this is actually the normal price now, and then it just actually goes lower.
That's why you got to look at sites like Camel.
I do, but that's
Camel,
what I'm
camel.
saying is they game it so like, oh, it's great. It's a great price because it's going to go back up because you see all these.
It's
kind
like
of
the standard
price
thing
lists,
for
and then it goes
retail.
Like, oh, cut the price, keep it at that. It's the new low price, and it seems like it's a huge.
It's no
good
different
deal.
than that sticker story you were telling us about the film canisters.
Oh yes, that was my job.
Going off topic, just like y'all are. I didn't realize that this was a life goal of mine until Gordon just did it. But now I really want to, on one of these episodes, just start a conversation, a sentence, by going, by my calculations. He wasn't even saying it like that. He just like, by my calculations. Now I want to do that real bad.
Pretty good.
$3,584.
If it holds to the
If
average.
it holds to the $28 per thread thing. I can't imagine an aim that you're like, well, how much should we price this? Well, we'll just base it off that chart that Gordon did. That's easy. Oh, that's easy. All right.
Hey,
It's
we
Miller
figured,
time.
I mean, but
He's done the hard work already.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
The finance department doesn't need to be involved.
yeah.
it is. I mean, but it has held up. I mean, that sort of price value per
I mean, even
thread.
on the,
So
I mean, I would say a little bit more on the Intel side, because I think it wasn't until that 28 core where we're like, whoa, dude, this is like literally the same. It scales.
Yeah.
So AMD's a little more fluctuation, but still, I mean, yeah, 3,500. I could see it.
and yeah, I mean,
64 cores.
yeah, and that 30 for the 3175X, just to give people an idea, was $54 per thread, which is for Intel pretty good price. That's. If it had been $4,000, it would have been no.
Yeah.
But this is like, $3,500 would be extremely disruptive. Keep the price high enough so it's not like you're going to like, oh, I'm going to buy it at Micro Center because it's $100 off or something. You're going to drive down to Micro Center because it's $100 off.
If my gas is
And people
less
still-
than that $100.
Yeah, but you're buying a $3,600 CPU. You're not going to worry about it too much. I mean,
That's true. You'd have your assistant drive to Micro Center.
Yeah,
to
that's
buy
right.
it.
Or you would
Should be
hire
up for
somebody on TaskRabbit.
that's why I never understood why people got really angry about the Xeon 3175X because it was $3,000, and then the motherboard was $1,500 rumor ends up being $1,800. For the people who are buying a Lamborghini, the more you increase the prices, the more it's exclusive.
Yeah.
It actually makes it's even cooler for the people who buy those things.
And then that means less people are buying it, and then it becomes even more exclusive.
Yeah.
It's totally off topic to Ryzen, but you were just talking about those motherboards, those crazy motherboards that came out, like the Asus Dominus or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
Gamers Nexus actually had Buildzoid from actually Hardcore Overclocking his channel do like a 30-minute episode breaking down that motherboard, and it's just like sent from aliens in the future. It's an amazing thing just to look and see broken down by an expert. So if anybody cares about that in the audience, definitely go check that out.
Yeah, that's a cool one. And then I think Steve, also another shout out, he just did a tour of the Gigabyte Lab, and they actually had the infamous water chiller, they did the 5 gigahertz demo with. Same thing, that board is just overbuilt. I mean, you can complain all you want, but those motherboards are like, these are not just like we stuck on some heat sinks and we're charging you an extra $1,000. These things are just, these are
Heavy metal, man.
These are exotic car level motherboards being sold to consumers. Consumers being people who just want the baddest and best thing there is.
Car level, I mean, these things are $1,800. My first car was $500. I think my second car cost me $300.
Wow.
Yes.
Where do you find cars that cheap?
When I was young and I had no money, rather than paying to fix cars, I'd just buy a beater every year. And just when I had to get it inspected, I'd throw it away and buy a new one.
Wow.
Brad was the person who just parked it in that Walmart parking lot and left it there. We left the keys in the ignition.
Yeah, so
Collected
when people
insurance.
complain about the, plastic straws, I'm like, oh, can't tell them what I used to do with cars.
Now the Florida Highway Patrol is like, hey, this guy's the one who had those 25 cars he abandoned. You're going to get the bill from the Florida Highway Patrol for like $25,000 in waste disposal.
That's
I
pretty
feel
good.
like you could have at least recouped some of your money by taking it to a junkyard for parts.
Oh, that's what I did. I got rid of it. I
Sure,
bring it down.
sure.
Someone take it.
No, he just parked it in some spot. He
On the
parked it in front
side of the Florida
His grandma's
highway.
house. Yeah. It's like,
He
hey,
and
grandma, I
Brad
need to
didn't even
park this
care.
here.
He's like, at a stoplight. F it, getting out, just leaves it right there. It's like,
I'm done with this.
Tuck and roll.
Nice.
But no, I mean, it's just there's a different clientele. There are people who really want cool ass things, and that thing is cool ass. I mean, that's ain't no rip off.
What is the chat been saying? I'm actually curious to see what would excite them about 3rd gen Threadripper.
I mean, chat's kind of all over the place. Sorry, they were talking about lots of weird stuff.
Pizza?
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna have to watch the YouTube to see where that went.
Just like timestamp, like just find this timestamp.
Well, at some point, Mr. Dre said, "Wait, what's InSync?" Yeah, so.
Oh my God, is that
like
the
the
new
band?
NVIDIA?
Oh my gosh.
the
new
There are
NVIDIA
babies-
technology,
There are
InSync?
babies in our chat.
I don't think they know who InSync
Wait, who
is.
mentioned InSync?
Mr. Dre, Mr. N. Dre.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, yeah.
I feel so
Side note.
old.
Yeah.
I thought, did we mention InSync?
No, we didn't.
No, he's saying he's giving us an example of like all the
Just chat went
tangents
in
that
weird
the
places.
chat's going off on.
Lots of weird stuff. Lots of good questions that I am piling up for the
Q&A?
Q&A section, especially one for you, Elena, that I think you're going to stick your teeth in.
All right, should I just get into USB 4 then?
Yeah, USB 4, what the hell?
USB 4 is
what
here.
What the hell?
You showed me some charts and my brain instantly just said, nope, Friday mode, not
No, it really
comprehending.
is. And I still don't quite understand it. I've already had one conversation. I'm going to have another one to even clarify it a little more.
Whew.
But this is basically, it is one cable to rule them all coming to fruition. It is.
Wait, but same connectors?
Look, this is the problem.
Different
though.
connectors?
This is the problem that everybody has. Is we all call them USB-C.
Yeah.
Right? USB-C is specifically just the connector shape.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all it is.
It's the round one.
What's behind it, what it connects to, you don't know. But
That's what makes it so terrible.
I know that isn't, because it shouldn't have been called USB-C. It should have just been called something else, right? It should have just been called oval connector.
Well, but I mean,
Now
come on,
it's
there
everybody's
was like
confused.
USB Type A, Type B,
But that's
Things like
I
that.
understand.
There's always
that.
been weird.
It is created because it's created by the USB consortium. But the confusion is the USB-C connector was used for Thunderbolt 3. It was used for it could carry DisplayPort. It could carry Thunderbolt 3. It could carry power, which is another different spec. You could actually have done USB power over Type A apparently, but nobody ever did it because it would have been crazy. And also because it's USB, you want everything to work, so it's always backwards compatible. So USB-C, USB cables work with everything previous to it at slower speeds, of course. So the news last week was, USB 3.2 spec, which because the way USB works, as I understand it, you basically have 10 gigs over the wires, and then you reverse it, and it stays on that same you just you flip the cable, it's on the same wires, but now you're using the other wires in the cable if you flip it the other way. So with USB 3.2 20 gig spec that they released, which is twice what it was with 10 gig, I have to do 3.2 before I even get to 4. You're using both of those wires. So it's like, hell, you're plugging this into that USB-C connector port for USB, and previously you were only using 2 wires. If you want, use all the wires and now get 20 gigs per second.
Oh, actually, I didn't know that's how USB-C worked. Is that just depending on the orientation, it just selected which wire it used?
So I mean, the wires were you'd only use certain wires to transfer at 10 gig. If I get it, I mean, who knows, right? God knows. So
by your calculations,
by my calculations,
this is how it works.
That's how it works. We don't know. The spec is published. It's final. It actually came out in 2017, but they basically said expect hardware this year. So meaning hardware this year probably means add in boards. You'll get USB 3.2 20 gig, controllers on the motherboard, and in adding cards, you're probably not going to see it integrated into CPU chipsets immediately, because usually that takes quite a while. So I wouldn't expect USB 3.2 20 gig probably till next year. Actually, in a chipset, if we're lucky. Usually, it takes a couple years. AMD's more aggressive about it. And then, of course, they also did announce, hey, we're doing USB 4, which is a whole new protocol, as I understand it. That basically is a superset of Thunderbolt 3, USB 10 gig, and USB 20 gig. So the 10 gig and 2x2
Why?
20 gig. Well, because the whole idea is it works with everything. So, and I'm talking to them again because I may have this wrong, but I think I'm pretty damn close. You have a 40 gig USB 4 connection. It'll work with all USB previous. and it may work with Thunderbolt 3 if they agree, if the vendor takes on the Thunderbolt 3 certification.
Sorry, this is why I said the word why. Not because I think it's a bad idea, but because all these like branches, it's just my brain can't keep track of this right now.
It's funny. This is all very exciting stuff, but it's just so confusing that it's like real hard to keep track of all the like. USB-C was supposed to be the one connector to rule them all or whatever. And I guess it kind of is because, as you said, it's just the connector type. But to people, it's just like USB-C, that's everything.
Yeah.
But it could be USB 3.0, which is now USB-C 3, USB 3.1 Gen 1. Whereas if you want 10, it's USB 3.1 Gen 2.
Yeah.
And now 3.2 is not just 3.2, it's 3.2 2x2. And then they announced USB 4 2 days. I'm just lost, man. I'm excited for all this stuff to happen. I hope it starts to narrow down.
Yeah. You need one of those flow charts where you go like this, yes, no, yes, nope, yes. Okay, here's your result.
Yeah, it's funny because I always think of the one cable to rule them all is also the one cable to confuse them all too, because it's like, hey, it ain't working. How come? And right? Because a lot of us sort of figured, well, Thunderbolt is just better because there's less confusion. With Thunderbolt 3, you got USB 10 gig, and you got Thunderbolt 3, and you got DisplayPort, and you got 100 watts of power.
I think the point of confusion is that there's options as opposed to a flat spec, like a flat set spec, right?
Right.
So what makes it confusing is that you get a USB-C port from a manufacturer, right? But you have to find out, like, what did they include with it? What can it deliver? Right. And every manufacturer or vendor rather can decide for themselves what they want to include. And so it's not immediately apparent what you get, as opposed to with, as you just said, Thunderbolt 3, you're like, okay, I know that this word means this thing.
And it used to be like that with USB as well. Like you would get a laptop, and if it had the normal color ports, it's USB 2. And if it had the blue or white ports or whatever, it's USB 3. You knew what you got.
This one is faster.
Right. And that was actually, that's the one thing I brought up in the conversation because, and I agree with this. If, they're like, hey, look, we're herding cats, right? We're not even talking like, you got to think of people, there are literally probably more than 10,000 companies that make USB devices, right? Yep. Easily more than 10,000 companies that make so. We can't say, if you're going to make a USB 4 device, that you need to take on the full 40 gig because you're making like a $5 whatever tchotchke. You don't have to have full 40 gig implementation. You don't have to have USB-C power delivery, USB power delivery. You don't have all these things. We leave it open to you, but the port is still the same. So that's the confusion. Like a phone doesn't need 40 gig, right? It doesn't need a DisplayPort. It doesn't need 100 watts of power. So they have to leave it open to people. And when you leave, they're like, well, they always say, like, we believe companies will do what's right for their customers and what's right for themselves financially. But the actual upside of that is like, no, they never do. They just do what is.
It's just chaos.
That's kind of my issue sometimes with consortiums in general. They tend to think about how to satisfy all of their clients, like you're talking about the manufacturers and stuff, and don't always necessarily think of how this works in real people's lives.
No, and I agree, and we had this conversation the other day. And of course, people would say, like, why didn't they do this from day one? And you can't go to 10. You can't just start at 10. You can't just simply launch perfection. You can't just simply say, oh, we're going to start with ray tracing. All the developers are activated now. All the games they all have. It's never. You got to start somewhere, and it's always really, really ugly. And I know it would have been awesome if we started with basically USB 4 with all these modes, with all this power.
That's not what I said at the time.
And reversible, but I'm just saying we had to start with USB 1. If you tried to start all the capability, I interviewed the person who invented USB at Intel, and he's like, yeah, I wish we had done reversible, but if we had done a reversible cable at the time, we wouldn't even be around today because what companies would have said, I'm like, are you kidding? The amount of money it would take to have this mode to make it reversible makes this product not possible to make.
Sure.
So it's,
but I think the issue, sorry, you can go ahead.
I just think it's too bad that in the quest to make USB-C a universal connector, USB 2 and 3 have gone away because a lot of these companies that do make these cheap, $5-10 devices that just need a USB port, they could still be using USB 3, USB 2, and everyone would know it's the white one, that's that shape, that's USB 2. It's trying to shoehorn everything into USB-C is the part that really sticks in the way.
I think the issue is more that they're just not good about labeling, right? So I think it's the problem is that they have a legacy system that they're trying to graft a new system onto, and that's the confusing point. In some ways, I'm not sure why they didn't just break free of the convention, so to speak, where it's like what the Wi-Fi consortium is now moving to what they're calling it like Wi-Fi 5 and Wi-Fi 6, just to make it simpler, right? That completely breaks with tradition, but it's to help people understand like what they want to get across. And I don't understand why they can't have done the same with USB-C, right? Like maybe they completely just changed it and they said, we're just calling it USB blank, like whatever that, phrase would be. And then you need to look for like these kind of color stripes on your cable to tell you what's included in the cable, or that kind of thing. And that would have made this transition a lot easier, but it's almost like they're still trying so hard to like align with a previous way of organizing the data or organizing the naming structure that it just makes it completely confusing.
Well, there's a lot of this is the reason why, as I always understood it, there's a reason why Intel has, the other big news is Thunderbolt 3 is no longer proprietary. Necessarily, they've opened the spec up so anybody could build a Thunderbolt 3 part.
Yeah, we actually did have a question about that from Tech13, wondering if AMD will then support Thunderbolt 3 because of USB 4.
Well, I think they will eventually, but the way they're gonna do it is the way I understand it from USB-IF is for USB 4, you can do a USB 4 port, which will. If you basically say you want to support Thunderbolt 3, you can do that, and all the compatibility then is done through them, which has been one of the problems with Thunderbolt 3 is it's been horrible to get things certified. I've had vendors complain about this for years, saying we don't know where the hell it is. It's just bouncing around inside Intel somewhere. And so the certification will be done through the USB-IF, so you could get basically Thunderbolt 3 compatibility, backwards legacy. It's probably fair to call it legacy at this point. Thunderbolt 3 legacy support in a USB 4 part. So if AMD develops or integrates an ASIC into its parts that has USB 4 with Thunderbolt 3, they can support it that way. Or, of course, they could buy chips from somebody else who's making full Thunderbolt 3 parts, but it probably makes sense if they're going to go that full distance, why not just do the full USB 4 with Thunderbolt 3 compatibility? But that ain't going to happen tomorrow. Right, that's going to take some time. So I suppose, and now that Intel has opened up Thunderbolt 3, you could see, AS Media, NEC, all those folks, they could make their own Thunderbolt 3 spec parts. But you know what? If you're AS Media and you're NEC and you're all these third-party vendors, like, yeah, we're not going to bother with that. We're probably just going to go straight to USB 4 and do it that way because we don't want to have just Thunderbolt 3. We want to have the USB 4 stuff now too. So I think that's where the world will end up. We're just going to end with USB 4. People knowing if you're building a laptop, add in Thunderbolt 3 legacy support, right? Because laptops are where you want Thunderbolt 3, right? You kind of want that high-speed connection.
Yeah.
It's optional, but the thing is, it's going to be optional. It's going to be optional because they're going to go like.
And we're back to square at the very start.
Yeah,
here.
and we're back to the same one because I understand it. You can't you're making a $150 Chromebook. It's USB 4. You really need 100 watts of power and mandate that they have Thunderbolt 3 support. Probably not. Leave it. So that port will not be USB-C shaped, but it won't have all those things. It's. Let me bring up the story people don't know. Originally, USB 3 was blue, right? That blue.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You always saw the blue, and you're like, all right.
The blue, because I asked them, I was like, well, how come no? They made the blue, said, please use the blue. We encourage you to use the blue. They wouldn't say this, but this is me saying it. Vendors such as Apple said, man, that is an ugly blue. And it's basically the blue from the USB. I didn't know this, but it's the Pantone colors for the USB-IF symbol, right? That blue. It's like, okay,
branding.
Makes sense. We'll just use that. It's easy. But Apple, remember all those MacBooks came out, they had to have blue ports, they had black ports.
Yeah.
Which was, of course, what a standard USB 2 port was. And up to that point, other vendors are like, oh yeah, we're going to do the blue. And it's like, it does look that is a funky color. Let's make ours black too now. And then you had motherboard vendors. Wait, remember this? You had motherboard vendors like, well, this has a different charging mode, so we're going to do red.
Yeah.
Gigabyte had orange. Oh.
Yellow.
Yeah.
Yellow in there.
So what you're telling me is I have Apple to thank for the lack of headphone jacks on my phone and the lack of easily identifiable USB ports.
That's fair.
Yes.
I think that is very fair because I don't remember any of the PC vendors breaking with that convention. They all mostly said, okay, well, we understand it makes sense to differentiate blue for USB 3 super speed, black for USB 2. Oh, MacBook's doing that. We're going to do the same thing now. Oh.
Oh man.
Oh boy.
But I just want to finish off. The reason why Intel did Thunderbolt 3 and Thunderbolt as proprietary, they controlled it all from beginning to end. They didn't want to let anybody mess with it. People got really angry with that because it's like, oh, it's Intel. It's like, look, they've always said if we did rule by committee, Thunderbolt would never happen. It would never happen. You have all these different corporate interests in there. It's just, no, it's just.
That's fair.
So, and it's fair because Thunderbolt 3 really, it went from like horrible Thunderbolt 2 was like, who cares? This is dead already. It's just FireWire to like Thunderbolt 3. It's like, wow, I want this feature.
Yeah.
Overnight almost. So
everyone in chat.
I'm looking at a desktop PC I have over there, and it has 4 blue ports, 2 black ports, a red port, and a USB-C port.
Well, isn't there like 2 blues? I've seen some motherboards have like a light blue and a dark blue, right?
Yeah. Sometimes they
always use that like baby blue color because that was like their color.
Yeah.
I never knew what it meant. And then, you had red, didn't know what and then, remember another one was like, remember the combo eSATA ports with USB?
Oh, yeah.
Those are red. Yeah.
Lenovo did yellow, if I remember correctly, for a little bit.
So it's a mess. USB 4, hopefully, it got announced. It won't be real we won't have hardware for probably a couple years.
But when it does come out, it sounds like it's going to be super awesome.
I think it will because if vendors do the right thing, by my calculations, if the vendors do the right thing and say, I'm making a $1,300 Ultrabook, you know what? These people, they want to hook up high-speed external drives. I'm gonna do the full USB 4 and Thunderbolt 3 compatibility thing. Bam. You will need new cables for that, by the way.
Oh Lord.
Great.
Hey, but you know what? I didn't realize this because I didn't realize how much of a headache Thunderbolt 3 cables were. But there's passive and active. But I was like, well, that's what I knew there were passive and active, but I never really understood that there were passive long cables and active long cables. That's sort of the weird thing because I always thought all long cables were active, but some of them were passive.
This is like HDMI.
So 20 gig and 40 gig, basically.
HDMI,
some of them were, yeah. And the cool thing is the active Thunderbolt 3 cables, USB 2 speeds, 480 megs a second because of the repeater chips in them. So.
Oh Lord.
So I might work at PC World, but I've always said, I want nothing to do with printer technology, and I want nothing to do with routers and home networking. And this conversation today has made me realize USB cables fit right into that conversation. Tell me the most expensive one to buy, the cheapest, most expensive, the one that does everything.
Yeah. Well,
I'm still
I guess
confused.
that's an explainer in our future.
That's a very big explainer.
But Elena, I think a lot of this can be fixed by cable, like stripes for this or this color for that.
Yeah.
Here are the standards.
If they just labeled them.
You have to do this to do this? Oh, yeah.
If they just labeled them, it would make everyone's lives easier from the early adapter point of view, and also that I have to do technical support from my relatives' point of view. Buy this one with these colors. Yep. You see the chart? And match it.
It would also take the onus off of the cheap device manufacturers, too, because if you're making a cable, you can just put a red stripe on it.
Yep.
Except that when you go to Amazon and you're like, oh, wow, this Belkin cable, that's $25.
Just rely on FakeSpot. Make sure the FakeSpot. I'm not going to
buy this Belkin cable. This one's just as good. It's got plenty of these reviews on it. I'm going to buy this one. It's $5.
Oh, so that's why they call it Amazon Basic.
Yeah.
Because it's actually USB 2.0.
I actually think Amazon Basic is sort of like a reliable indicator sometimes because it's like, okay, they must have done their homework. So that's.
I feel like Amazon Basic is useful when you literally need something that's just basic. Like you don't really care about it performing beyond what it's stated as.
Yeah.
And it will do that.
It'll come in a nice little box.
So, yeah.
Frustration free.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
All right. Thanks for weeding through the USB
man.
waters.
I
Wading
had to
through
be
the
the
USB
downer
waters.
person.
Yeah. Wow. This.
I think weeding is actually the right word in this instance because you got to pull out all the crap, man.
I need a drink.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, we should have made that
Let's
one in the middle.
pour one out for USB. No, because then we would have lost everybody. But we have a lot of questions to get through.
We have so many in Discord. We probably have so many in
All right,
chat.
let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So yeah, let's do it. I'm going to catch up real quick. Some of the ones that were lingering in chat from a while ago. Over on Twitch, DadGamer77 is looking to build a budget gaming PC close to $500 and games at 1080p. So this one's for Elena.
Oh, jeez. On the fly.
Sorry. He's got parts here. And we can all say what we think of them. Ryzen 5 2600, RX 580, a MX 500 250 gigabyte Crucial, Corsair Vengeance DDR4 2400, two 4 gigs, and a B450 Tomahawk MSI motherboard. What do we think?
And they want to do that
500
under 500, or they did already do it for 500?
It sounds like that's what he found in the 500 price range.
Buy that and be happy.
Yeah, seriously. If you can get that for 500, that's not shabby.
I would say the only other addition very immediately is to add a hard drive.
Yeah, because that 250 gig is... Whew.
Well, the thing is, though, with SSD prices being what they are lately, I can't imagine that they wouldn't be able to get a 500 gig SSD for like $50 right now. I mean, like we've been seeing that multiple sales lately. So like Kingston and SanDisk. So like not your Samsung Evo level SSDs, but still very respectable, very reliable SSDs.
A lot better than a hard drive.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would say get the 500 gig and get a hard drive.
Yeah,
you're not going to get a 2
right.
terabyte or 4 terabyte SSD for $150.
Well, yeah. So I would say, because even 256 as a boot drive can fill up pretty quick, depending on how you...
As a gaming machine, yeah.
Yeah. So I would say keep the 256 for your boot, but then make sure all your games or things that you want to access quickly goes on, say, like a 500 gig SSD, which you get pretty cheap now. And then I saw like a 2 terabyte Western Digital hard disk drive for like $50 the other day on Newegg. So then that can be like your slower stuff that you don't need like a ton of access to like quickly. Like you want to store your videos and stuff on there. So that might push you above 500, but I would flesh it out a little bit just to make it more comfortable.
If it does and you're on a tight budget, I would think the baseline specs that he just threw out there and said he found for $500, that's an awesome starting point. Like buy that and then just wait a month or two and get a hard drive. Like play smaller games.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is 8 gigs enough?
Yeah.
What about that B450 board? I don't know that MSI Tomahawk. Is that overkill?
B450 at this point is probably running in the $100 range, depending on what kind of sale you get for it. I mean, that's a pretty decent board because I mean, if you ever want to, they have a 2nd gen Ryzen part. Is that what it was? 2600.
2600.
Yeah.
I could do some overclocking with that. So having a B450 board is good.
I didn't see the price of Windows in $100 for Windows.
That's because
$20.
Valve has made it real easy to play Linux games on Linux these days.
I see.
There you go. Boom. Back to our Linux conversation.
Full circle.
All right, cool. That's one off. So over on YouTube, Tejas had a question. Is the Asus ROG Strix SCAR 11 RTX 2070 a good buy? I want to buy it from the USA and import it to India because it's not available here. In India, I mean.
That's a laptop.
Yep.
With a 2070 in it. The SCAR 11's a laptop. I have no
SCAR
experience
11. Yep. I thought we reviewed the SCAR 11, have we not?
I don't think so.
No, we have not.
We've seen it. I think it shows, but we haven't reviewed it.
Yep.
Do you have any ideas? Gordon, do you know it off the top of your head? I don't know it off the top of my head enough to talk knowledgeably, personally.
Sorry, I thought that was one we had reviewed.
It's basically, it's a decent, mid-range. I mean, not super small, super thin and light like some other laptops, I don't think, right? So it's, standard 6-core i7, 8750H and a 2070. Yeah, Asus generally does pretty good stuff. I wouldn't expect great battery life out of any of them. And it looks like we're getting dual channel. You're getting Optimus. So, yeah, decent laptops from the looks of it.
Yeah, those Strix laptops, I mean.
Yeah. And it looks actually reasonably thin-ish. But, gaming laptops, mostly you're not going to be carrying them with you every day.
I mean, I feel like if you're going to go to the trouble of importing it, and they've probably already done this, but just, see what user reviews are saying.
Yeah, user reviews. The great place to check is notebookcheck.com. They really... They really like to kick the tires in the hardware, so that's a good place.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm looking at it now, so Notebook Check is a good place. Yeah. I would trust what they say.
All right, last question built up from YouTube. Will wants to know, Gordon, how is the new 8-core 16-thread mobile CPUs from Intel, still on 14 nanometer, going to be able to cool themselves in laptops when the 8750H is already struggling with heat?
I would think if this part comes, is the rumored part, right? The rumored 8-core.
Well, no, he sent me a link to somebody.
Yeah, it's not announced, but it's been leaked.
Yeah, it hasn't been officially said by Intel.
Yeah, okay.
I do wonder, because, what I think is it's only going to go into laptops, hopefully, that can handle the TDP of it. And it's probably going to require laptops that just have redesigned cooling systems. You can do it, clearly, because we've had hotter CPUs in laptops in the past, but it depends on the notebook manufacturers being responsible to only properly configuring the cooling on them and the power. It probably also depends on how they're marketed, and also, I think one of the weakness with the 6 cores in some designs is they just drop them into previous designs. Newer cooling designs that can handle the thermals, not a problem. Laptops are like, you know what? We can't respool. We have it in a design we've invested millions of dollars in making, and there's a lot of pressure just to put the thing in there and then nerf the clocks. Because what are you going to do, right? You can redesign it, but that's for 3 years down the road, or it's a lot of money. It's down the road, so. Generally, hopefully, I think it can be done if it's only done in very large laptops. Hell, look at the Alienware Area 51M. That's going to be a desktop processor in there, so it can be cooled. But that thing is huge. So
yeah, true.
When you're saying, hopefully they only put it in big laptops, I thought the same thing about Core i9, and then those dumbasses put it in a MacBook Pro. So,
no, really, Brad, tell us how you feel.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you from the insider's view is we go to the briefing on that, and they're like, yeah, these are i9s will only go into laptops, because vendors will be responsible. They're not going to try to jam an i9 into something thin and light. And then you're Intel. You sell these parts to people. The OEMs who buy the parts from them. They're the customer. The customer is always right. So then there's blowback on Intel, because Intel's like, oh yeah, these are only going to get big gaming laptops, and then it's like, we're going to put this into a thin and light, and I think there's going to be a big compromise, right? Well, then we won't buy it. Then, okay, well then we'll sell you all how many you want. Do whatever you want, right? The customer's always right, even if it's the quote unquote wrong thing. And then of course everybody else is like, well, Apple's doing it, so we're going to do it. So and to be fair to Apple, the laptops, the performance is not like a desktop. The performance is never the same, right? It's lower in some designs, it's higher in some designs. To get a Core i9 high single-threaded core clocks in a 4-pound laptop, that's impressive. You give up a lot elsewhere, which they don't market on, but you should know what you're getting. So
yeah. All right, I'm going to start pounding through some of the Discord ones. So if you have a question, get them in on the Discord Full Nerd Questions channel thing. This first one's from Banana Hands. Looking to upgrade my monitor down the road to 1440p 144 hertz, but wanted to know the panel they should consider. Planning on general use, gaming, IT, and audio-related workloads, so should they look into VA panels, or would they be jack of all trades and master of none?
VA, it depends on the implementation. Some are really good, some are really bad. I think they get kind of a bum rap. I still like IPS in general. Like I'm a big IPS fan. I don't have too much experience like reviewing a whole bunch of 1440p monitors these days because they want to send you 4K all the time. But one that's really, really awesome, it's a FreeSync monitor called the Nixius Edge EDG27. It's 144 hertz in 1440p, and it's great. It's like $300.
Cool.
I'm trying to think of the one that I saw. God, it was. Of course, it's so old. I don't even know if they make it anymore. There was ASUS made a 1440 IPS panel that was beautiful, except for it did have some light leaking. I'm going to see if they still sell it. This is the PG279Q.
Monitors, though, in general, I feel the same way like I do with laptops. It's not always feasible depending where you live, but if you can go somewhere where you can actually like see it and look at it and move your head around to figure out like if your workload is good on it, if you can do that, if it's at all possible, try to do that. Mm-hmm. Like if you have a Micro Center, if you have a Best Buy or something like that, try to go down there and see what catches your eye.
Mess around with the settings. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, this ROG PG279Q, 144 IPS is $700. G-Sync.
Yeah, that's the G-Sync one. Yeah.
G-Sync.
Yeah.
That's a really good panel, though.
Yeah, it's a great panel. Except for the light leak, but it's a great panel. I'd love to have one of those.
All right. Sixth Thrill Cosby has a 1700 and a 2070 and is wondering how much of a bottleneck there is before he needs to upgrade the CPU.
I wouldn't worry about it too much. I have 1800X and a 1080 Ti, and I mean I'm losing some compared to a high-end Intel thing if I'm playing at ultra-high frame rates, but it's fun.
Even in they're also getting into some workload stuff, not just gaming. Is that still? Do you think it's a problem or no?
I mean, like my go-to advice is always, there's always going to be something bigger and better out there. If your hardware isn't doing what you need to do for your workloads, then upgrade. If you're doing what needs to get done and it's working fine, then save your money.
All right. Cool. Oh boy, Big Mama is asking, what do you think about TSMC's 7nm process? After looking at the Radeon 7 overclock potential that shows many owners can easily clock above 2250 megahertz on core with simple AIO mods. If you judge it by comparing the Vega 64 overclock potential to the Radeon 7.
That is a very complicated and detailed question that I don't have an easy answer for. Because once you start installing mods like that and doing, all those kinds of physical hardware mods and changing all kinds of stuff, it's a totally different beast, right? Because, like, out of the box, the Radeon 7 is not going to get anywhere near that level of clock frequency without catching fire. So... I don't know. You very well might be able to find that information somewhere else on the internet. I have not gone that deep into that. So,
okay. Rooker's asking, can you explain what's so great about G-Sync FreeSync monitors? It's just a matter of eliminating screen tearing without VSync on, or is there more?
It's the elimination of screen tearing. It's unless something's real funky in your system that's causing extreme frame time spikes. It's buttery smooth. They're really good at, just smoothing everything out. So 45 frames per second, if you're trying to play on a 4K monitor with G-Sync, it doesn't feel like 45 frames per second. It doesn't feel so bad. You can get by if you can't quite hit 60 with the FreeSync or G-Sync monitor. And it's just that smoothness. Once you've used a FreeSync or G-Sync monitor, it's real hard to go back to a normal. Like, you will see screen tearing all the time. So... if you're thinking about making the jump, make the jump. It's worth it. It's very subjective. It's hard to kind of quantify, but it's a huge upgrade for gaming.
Yeah, and I totally agree. That's it's probably better if you're just kind of like sitting waiting for the GPU wars to fizzle out or whatever. Then a monitor with variable refresh is a worthy investment because you can't go back. You can't go back.
Yeah, it's so good. It really is. Like that's a real game changer. Like going to FreeSync, G-Sync, Adaptive Sync stuff.
Yeah, it's a real great thing for budget gamers, especially in my opinion, just because you can get FreeSync monitors in the lower, budget end.
They don't work.
Okay, Jensen.
You combine that with a compatible,
a couple work.
budget GPU, and you get a real nice, much nicer experience
That's
than
true.
having to shell out a ton of money just to get higher frame rates to get that smoothness, or try to even get towards that smoothness.
It is.
Go
ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying it really just once you just played it, just like
yeah,
it makes you sad to go back to your old monitor.
Makes you sad to go home and play games, Gordon?
Yeah, I don't.
Order Warships.
It's not a magic pill. People say it eliminates tearing and stuttering.
Yeah.
It doesn't. If you have something going on in your system, like if you don't have enough VRAM in your memory card and it has to hit system memory, or for whatever reason your storage or your CPU can't keep up with an open world game, you can still see stuttering with it, because if it goes from 75 frames to 25 frames per second, I mean, it's not going to eliminate, tearing and stuttering like that. That's still going to stutter. But if you have a normal, like, balanced system that doesn't have any weird deficits like that, it's magical.
Cool. Big Mama has another question. Since USB 4 is announced to implement Thunderbolt 3 for free, can this be a hint that the new Mac Pro will be using AMD's new CPUs?
I don't think so. I think USB 4 spec will come out, be published this summer. You got to figure July, August. Typically, I think they were saying the previous pattern has been about 18 months from publication of spec to final parts for Apple, I guess that lines up perfectly.
Yeah, I mean,
we'll see a
Mac
new
Pro's
Mac
never
Pro
coming
in
out, so.
2022. So yeah, maybe that makes sense. But I don't think so. I don't think it would be USB 4 and Thunderbolt. Apple would just simply get Thunderbolt. They'd integrate their Thunderbolt 3 controls into it. Because it can be done.
It's not going to have any ports. It's going to be the wireless future.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
You'll take my wires from me when I'm dead.
A couple more. Guitar Guy 515 is asking, which of the Ryzen 300 series are the most exciting for us, and which CPUs will be the most popular in general from that list that's been leaked?
So I have the list in front of both Gordon and myself. I think for me personally, I would say the most exciting is probably in the middle of the stack. So that kind of Ryzen 5 area. Because I think at that point when you're getting, if any of this is true, right? If you're getting 8 cores and 16 threads for like $200, I think that's a pretty great sweet spot. And my answer is the same for what I think will be popular in general. I think a lot of people will just gravitate right towards that middle section, which I think aligns with how the segmentation goes now, right? Like, I think Ryzen 5 Core i5 is probably the most popular of all the chips. Yeah. But dang, like 8 cores, 16 threads.
For $200. It's a hell of a deal. For me, I'm excited for the 16 core part. I think there will be a lot of. I'm still not convinced they will ship a 16 core at launch, but I do think that's the one that is the most exciting because it's 16, right? It's just more. I don't think that doesn't mean it necessarily makes sense for anyone. It doesn't necessarily make sense for consumers, but to give people that option to go to 16 cores for $450.
I was going to say, like, can you I want someone to put us like side by side with our discussions from before like first gen Ryzen launched.
Yeah.
Just to talk about that difference where we're like $500 for this many cores, amazing.
And that's why I think, I understand I a very cynical person go, this is just you're just taking advantage of people saying more cores is better. I don't advise most people to buy a 16 core processor, but I am most excited for it because it's just exciting because, damn, that's 16 cores for $400. I mean, that's insane. That's what 8 cores costs us with the first-gen Ryzens, And then I sort of think AMD has to play to their strength, which is we get you excited about core count and thread count, and damn, they're still like doling it out, like
Making it rain.
you see the wallet open up, malts come out, like that's from my Uncle Scrooge cartoon. It's like 12 cores.
AMD is making it rain.
Yeah, and that's their strength, right? So it gets people excited, gets people worked up. As an actual practical CPU for most gamers and most consumers, it is not practical at all. But hell, I'm excited for it. Just like I'm excited for the idea of a 64-core Threadripper. I mean, I would love to see it. Does it make sense? No, it never makes sense. But it's just like people get excited for a 185-mile-hour Corvette, which no one will ever drive at that speed, except unless you take it on track. But no,
Our boss might.
yeah, on the track. But I mean, it's just no, it's just not. You get excited for it. That's what I'm excited about. I think most popular would be Ryzen 7, 12 cores.
Really? Not the 5?
I mean, yeah, popular as in I'm a cheapskate. Yeah, that's what will be popular.
I see what you think of me.
Yeah, that $230 price point is that's the Core i5. That's always been the sort of mainstream every nerd's CPU. I think people who are more into it will go for 12 because 12 is better than 8, and it is nice. 12 is probably the practical limit of that socket too, I would think. We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and those prices, I mean, I say this every year, but I really feel like this is a year that I'm going to rebuild my PC at home. And
Are you just waiting? Is that what you're doing?
Well, no, because I mean, I'm still getting enough performance with what I have at home, but I'm right on that edge where I'm
But
just
it's hard, right? Because when you think something better is going to come and you can make do a little bit longer, it really makes it difficult to want to fork out the money and make a commitment.
Well, and yeah, I mean, and I can definitely use 12 cores, and that price, 330, rumored. If it really hits boost clocks of 5 gigahertz as well for the 3700X.
Yeah,
that's an optimistic set of leak specs right there.
Yeah.
We don't know though. It's hard to say because this is what leaked last summer. Mm-hmm. It's like, damn. It's like, really? You're predicting what the boost clocks will be on yield for a CPU that's still being produced? I don't know.
And it's moving to a new process, but people forget that the more cores that you cram into a chip, it's going to run at lower speeds, typically.
Yeah, but that is boost. That is the boost. So it is possible to hit that on boost, but I'm just sort of saying, like, it's like that'd be one hell of a prediction to come in and hit that boost clock a year later. I'd be impressed.
Yeah.
Not that they can't do it. I'm not saying they can't.
It's like a mic drop moment.
That is just
It's looking at this list, and if this bears fruit, that's what I would spring for. Probably that 3700X.
Yeah. So
after I see your testing, whenever it comes out.
Yeah, that 329 price. I like how AMD's adopted that like 329, 229 pricing.
But you wouldn't be influenced by the software you're using? Because I know one of the reasons Dan went with Intel is because of that.
Well,
for QuickSync.
QuickSync, and then the higher clocks, and also just Intel's usually more reliable, but I don't know. I want to give AMD a try. I've never had an AMD CPU at a home rig. Yeah, so
why would you only stop at 12 cores?
Because that's enough for me. No, that's enough for me. I can even get away with 8. That's what I use here at work. Or eight cores, so
I was very sad.
I get away with 8.
Yeah.
Oh, we have it so rough. Now.
I know, right?
I ran Cinebench R20 on my 8-core Sandy Bridge E at home. It was very sad because like a freaking KB like quad core with hyperthreading is actually faster in Cinebench than my machine. It's 8-core. It's an 8-core Sandy Bridge E, but it's just like, oh damn! Even in like
lower clocks, right? Yeah,
lower clocks, and then the new benchmark has AVX2 and AVX 512 and stuff. So
yeah.
Brad, did you have an opinion?
I do not.
Oh.
Sorry, I wasn't really listening. I had an important text come through.
Oh, no, I was just curious if you had an opinion on the Ryzen 3000 series.
Oh, yeah. No, I haven't studied that list very well. But I think, as always, like you, I think Ryzen 5 is going to wind up being the nerd's choice, as Gordon put it.
Every nerd's choice. But not the people who are a little more into it are going to spring out. That Core i7 sells surprisingly well, that sort of level. Ryzen 7, I think, did really well because it's 7. It's 2 better than than 5.
I love how consistent you are in describing why things are better.
That's the whole point of marketing, and it communicates
better.
to people. They know, for the normal person, they go like, well, I don't want to have too little. They always get you like, oh, it's too little, it's going to be slow. No, this is way too much than you need anyway. But they always get you to buy more, right? That's the whole point of marketing.
All right, we've only got a couple more.
I have to be out of here in 5 minutes, by the way, Adam.
All right, 5 minutes.
One more
Then I
question.
will pick this one. Chi Ruki, will you expect a better integrated Vega GPU in the new Ryzen 3000 series? How can it get better?
Like
Will it get
better,
better?
How? Are we talking about
Just
like,
more CUs, I guess.
Yeah,
I would hope,
yeah.
depending on the launch timing, that it would have a Navi CPU in it. But that'll depend on when Navi launches and when all that launches, right? At this point, Vega's really good, but I mean, it's still 2 years old at this point. I mean, are they going to use their expensive, 7-nanometer Vega in an APU?
Price at $140, $130.
Yeah. So, I don't know. We'll have to see. I wouldn't be surprised if they reuse the same Vega. I would hope to see Navi. Who knows? Either way, I think it's going to be an impressive part, just like the first ones were.
Yeah, I think it'll just be same thing, but more cores probably.
Yeah.
More,
Same but more.
Because it's a budget part. I can't imagine them burning out the newest IP for that. So
It's also maybe an indication that if the price is really going to increase, maybe they're going to throw in a little bit more.
We'll have to see.
So we'll see. All right. That's it.
Oh, I thought there was a couple.
I mean,
Brad's gotta go.
Yeah, Brad's got to go.
Brad's gotta
So
go. I
let's
gotta
wrap
eat.
it up.
Oh, okay. Are we going to try to do it next week? We're going to try to do
we're
it next week,
definitely gonna do it
folks.
next week.
Definitely going to do it next week.
Yeah.
Probably later in the week.
Yeah. Give some time.
All right.
Yeah.
So check back later in your week for your fix of PC Talk on the Full Nerd. For our audio listeners, subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. Send questions and comments to the Full Nerd at PCWorld.com. Also, go to iTunes and Google Play and leave a review. Every time you do, AMD adds more cores to your CPUs. Not really true. That's a disclaimer. Thanks for coming. I'm Gordon Ung with Brad Charkis.
Adios.
And Adam Patrick Murray. Oh, and I forgot Elena. Not your name. Your name is not on the list because you weren't here the last time. And Elena gets to say goodbye
Bye,
as well.
everyone.
And then Adam Patrick Murray hits the off switch.
Oh,
Literally.
Okay, whatever.
Now.
I'll do that. Bye.